All right, hello everyone. We're going to look at pulmonary surfactant. This is, of course, in the lungs. So we're going to look at its functions and some recent research that has been done in the case of infants who have not been able to properly make this particular substance. So let's look and see what we're going to cover. We're going to look at the anatomy of some good healthy lungs, and then we're going to go into the function of what the surfactant does within the lungs, and then we'll also look at some recent research that has been done in treating premature infants and how that is working using an artificial surfactant, as well as some other methods that have been tried to help these premature infants get good, strong, healthy lungs, and then go on to lead good, healthy lives. So let's look at the anatomy of good old healthy lungs first, and here we go with that. So here we have the basics of the respiratory system. So we have the trachea here. We have the 3 lobes of the lungs on right side and 2 on the left side, and within those lobes, of course, we're getting the bronchi, which is in here, and then we'll go and look a little closer inside those bronchi. So as you can see, they branch, these bronchi branch throughout the lungs and extend throughout to help increase surface area. And within those bronchi, at the very ends, we have the alveoli. And the alveoli are the particular part of the lung that we're interested in when we're talking about surfactant in this case. So here we go, the primary bronchi, the bronchioles, and then these alveoli that are then providing the gas exchange along with the network of blood vessels to exchange the oxygen and CO2 that we breathe in and breathe out. So here we are, the alveoli are the ones that are responsible for that wonderful gas exchange that we're looking at. And inside those alveoli, of course, they look very similar to grapes. And in normal healthy lungs, we're looking at these being the conduits of that gas exchange, and they're always partially inflated in this case. And the reason that they are partially inflated, if we're looking at the lungs, they're surrounded by these pleural sacs, which help keep them inflated. They create a certain amount of pressure. Within that area itself, what the pulmonary surfactant does is that surfactant is there to provide a certain amount of, it's reducing surface tension at this air and liquid interface in the lungs, and it helps form a film. This film keeps the alveoli from collapsing completely, and that surfactant is made up of a mixture of lipids and proteins, so fats and proteins, and they're secreted by cells within this alveolar space, and that helps reduce that surface tension to keep these things partially inflated. And the reason for that is that as we inhale, these things become inflated, and as we exhale, they start to compress. Now, if these are not formed properly, if that surfactant is not secreted and forming the way that it should, what ends up happening is these things get deflated, and that increases the pressure on the alveoli, which causes them to deflate like a deflated balloon. And then what ends up happening is the baby has to breathe even harder to open these up. So if we continue to use that balloon analogy, what we're looking at is that when you first try to blow up a balloon, those first few breaths are really the most difficult part of it, and once you have air already inside the balloon, it becomes easier to inflate. And if you look at a balloon that is really flat, then usually those first couple of breaths are going to be the most difficult to do that. But then as you if as you've already got it partially inflated, then it becomes easier and easier to inflate. So the reason that this tends to be such an issue in infants is that during the development of the baby, the lungs are one of those things that starts to develop a little bit later on, and so what's going on with the baby is they're developing, and these things are one of the last organs to mature, because babies are in a very liquid environment within the womb, so they're not really even using those lungs. They can breathe through other methods. Once they are born, they have to start using those lungs, and if they have not had the chance to develop vis-a-vis the having that pulmonary surfactant there to reduce that tension, once they start to take in that first few gulps of air after either being delivered via cesarean section or through the birth canal, they're going to find it difficult to breathe for two reasons. These alveoli are going to be deflated, and they're going to have to be reinflated every time. And then number two, we also have these muscles that haven't had a chance to really do a whole lot, as well as they are new to the current environment as well. And so this provides kind of a double whammy for the newborn baby in this case, so that they're going to have a very difficult time breathing. And so what is usually done is that they are given an artificial surfactant, usually via a tracheal tube, that then helps deliver the surfactant into the lungs, which then goes to this alveolar and the alveoli and that alveolar space, and helps then provide the necessary nutrients so that surface tension can be reduced. So we get this with the alveoli instead of this. So some of the recent research that we're looking at, first of all, let's look at the idea that the method of the tracheal tube, and one of the things that was done was to insert a smaller catheter instead, and send the medicine in through that way, which is a little less invasive than a larger tube. And the results were positive, although in this case the research was not able to determine whether that particular result was due to the fact that they were using the smaller catheter, or if it was due to the fact that they had improved the surfactant that they had been normally administering. So they'd have to do some more research on that to see what all was done there. Another thing that was used as well was they used a surfactant along with another type of medicine, and this medicine is called ambroxyl hydrochloride. They're using that in conjunction with the surfactant to see what results they got there, and they had two groups. A control group was just being administered the surfactant, and then the next group had the surfactant along with the ambroxyl hydrochloride, and they found that the two in concert with one another really did help the infants improve their health very quickly, and their hospital stay was then reduced. So the role of the surfactant is to decrease that surface tension so that the alveoli can then properly inflate and deflate only partially, so that it gives us an easier time breathing, so that there's that advantage that we have there. And the methods being used and what it's made of, methods being used to help improve the health of these infants that suffer from this disorder are there's several methods being used, the catheter as well as the surfactant along with the ambroxyl hydrochloride. Both of these did consult parents, of course, because we are dealing with infants, and again, there were some positive vibes here, some positive results, but we're also looking at, always in the case of medicine, looking at more research being done to make sure that the methods that we have are what is are the most effective, and that we can really isolate truly what is going on here. So looking at these methods, I think it's always important to remember that no matter the tests that we run and no matter the results that we get, there's always some fine-tuning that we can do in improving the delivery of the medicines that we do receive and the treatments that we give for the various patients that we have. And as usual, we're giving credit where credit is due for the references as well as the studies. Feel free to look these up on your own time and look at if you're interested in furthering if there are other venues that where they've looked at these studies on a similar subject, and whether there's been time to expand on what has already been done. Always important to continue to follow that research to see what else is coming that is new. Again, one of these studies done in 2019, the other one done back in 2015, as well as early 2000 as other types of research, just looking at the feasibility of how the surfactant works and where it forms that film and protection around the alveoli so that they do not deflate all the way. But as usual, thank you for joining me, and appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time.